Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Sandra and this is Boho Jewel, where we explore all of the things creative and crafty. So I do a lot of crochet tutorials, and yesterday someone had left a comment asking about how to make sure the foundation chain is not too loose. So as I was trying to fall asleep last night, I started thinking about this. And this is actually a big problem for a lot of people. So I thought I would pop on and do a video sharing like how to really work on getting your tension just right with your crochet projects, because getting the tension too loose or getting it too tight is the biggest struggle that most beginners face. I know it was for me. That was my biggest issue when I was a kid trying to learn this, and I got super frustrated and gave up. I had a couple of my 5th graders who were wanting to learn how to crochet, and it was the same issue with them. And I also have a tip for you guys on how you can practice without getting super frustrated and giving up. So Matthew and Journey, this is for you guys too. So I hope your crochet adventures are going well. But I'm going to flip you guys around as I do, and we're going to get started. So the first thing you want to do is to get used to how to hold your yarn in your non-dominant hand. You're going to be using your dominant hand to do all of the crocheting and the looping and the pulling and the doing. So this is what you want to do. You want the tail of the yarn. You're going to leave a little bit of a tail right here to hold on to, but also to sew into your projects later. You're going to put your thumb right here, and you're going to loop this around, loop it around the back, catch it. Okay, you're just going to kind of hold that for a second. You're going to take the front, loop it up, pull that back through, slip your finger out, pull, and you have a nice little knot. That's your slip knot. That's your starting knot. So what I noticed with a lot of kids that are starting to learn, and even some adults, everybody holds their hooks a little differently. I've seen people hold their hooks like this and kind of go into it this way. However you're comfortable is fine. This is how I initially learned how to hold my hook, was kind of overhand like this. So it's just what I'm used to. The main thing is you want to really get the feel. It's a weird feeling. It is a weird feeling to figure out how to get this move, right? And to hold this at the right tension. So let's break that down just a little bit. So you have your slip knot. You're going to, I have to think about it for a second. All right, because and this is something I want everybody to realize, okay? I'm gonna just take a little pause and break to get on my teacher soapbox here. The biggest thing with this, if you feel yourself getting frustrated, step away for a little while, but don't give up. Unfortunately, just like anything else that we are learning in life, none of us want to hear this, because we all want to be really good at something on the first try, but things take practice. It takes practice and patience. The weirdest thing ever is trying to figure out how to hold this yarn and get that tension right. So if you can just roll with me on this, I promise it's going to make all of your crocheting dreams easier. So what you're going to do on your non-dominant hand, okay, is loop it around this way. So you're going to take, not the tail end, you want to make sure that the tail end, we're going to hold it over here on our hook so we don't get it mixed up right now, just for right now purposes. You're going to take the rest of the yarn that's attached to your ball. You're going to put it between your middle finger and your forefinger. You're going to wrap it around that forefinger and this, and then you're going to let everything go here. Whoop, and you're going to take your middle finger and your thumb, and you're going to hold your knot, or just below your knot, I guess is more accurate, okay? This should move freely, all right? This should not be so tight, I don't know if I can get it that tight, that it's like stuck. You also don't want to be working up here. I see that this is a mistake that people make a lot. If you're working from up here instead of on that wider part, then you're going to run into issues. You're not gonna have room to move, okay? So a couple of things with this, right? You can see how loose my yarn is right here. So if I start working this way and I don't have enough tension on this hand, and I'm leaving these big wide gaps in between, like I've got all this stretch space in between, yes, you're going to get a chain, okay? But do you see what's happening? It gets so loose, right? It's just getting really loose and it gets wider. So I think if you're running into having issues with that, that could be part of it, is that you're working, your hands are too far apart from each other, okay? So let's back that up. We'll get our little slip knot again. The other thing that I have seen happen is that people, when they're beginning, they're holding a death grip on their yarn and their hook. So the opposite of the loosey-goosey is you are, let me see if I can do it, is that you are really working up close in the front of this, right? And you're just strangling it, trying to get it through there. And you're working very narrowly in that space, right? And you're kind of running out of room. And you see how I'm sort of struggling with that? So what happens then is you have this little anxiety riddled yarn. And what happens is that when you try to go work into it, into your stitches to get your rows, it's going to be really hard to pull it through. And eventually, so you see how it just does not leave enough room to keep working and trying to force it through. If you feel yourself doing this, it is way too tight, okay? So let's go back. The other thing I've noticed, especially with the kids that I was teaching, and I've seen other people trying to learn how to do this, just trying to figure out how to get the loops, how to get the chain, right? Just to get it worked in your brain. And that's fine. Like, we all learn in different ways. But hooking the yarn over, right? And then holding it, and then getting it through the knot, oh my, right? And then kind of working it that way, like hooking it over and getting it through the knot. Okay, hooking it over, getting it through the knot. Oh my goodness. Right? It's hard for me not to hold it the right way just because I've been doing this so long, right? So again, what happens with this though, a couple of things will happen with this. If you can make a chain that way, I'm just gonna do this. If you can make a chain that way and kind of keep working it through, I'm just trying to get some length on that. Right, so the first thing you're going to run into is when you start trying to make a stitch, right? So say we're doing a single crochet and you're yarning over, and then you see how it just wants to twist, and you just don't have the control, and then you're probably going to have too much yarn, or it gets confusing. The yarn is twisting everywhere, all of that kind of thing. Also, you will end up, just like we had with the too tight tension, you're going to have spaces that are too small to work into. So if you're struggling with this whole idea of how to hold your yarn like this, this is your first step, is to learn how to do this and hold, get used to the awkwardness of this, because this is what's going to give you the space to then learn how to do other stitches. If you are just looping it over and pulling it, it's going to make it way difficult to try to learn anything beyond a single crochet, double crochet, half double, all those things. It's just going to be way trickier. So even though this is uncomfortable, doing this is going to be, doing your little yarn finger is going to be the easiest thing to get going. So now let's talk about how to get a really nice, right in the middle, Goldilocks zone, not too tight, not too loose chain. All right, so we've got our slip knot. We're going to move this over to the side. We're going to, in the middle, loop it over, okay? And you're going to hold with your middle finger and your thumb right here just below the knot. And this should not feel like you're working the rest of your hand too hard. This is basically just kind of like to help keep the yarn from wobbling all over the place, all right? So maybe just a little bit below your knuckle. All right, so find a comfortable place. I would say no further than oh my gosh, what am I trying to say? Like, it shouldn't be further than where, like, if you're, I'm trying to remember what this is called, this part of the, if I can, I'll look it up afterwards. I can't remember what this part of the hook is called. I'll put it up here somewhere, a cute little word. So anyway, this part where you want the yarn to be, the loop, you don't want it too much further from, it should be almost touching your finger. Okay, that I think is a pretty good distance. So you're not working right here really close, and you're not so far away that you're, you know, trying to reel it in from the deep sea or something. So just keep it fairly close, about a good length, and then you're going to gently yarn over, and it should just slide right through, okay? Now with this first chain, this is to answer Allison's question, with this first chain, it can be tricky because it wants to move around a lot. It's very loose. Once you have a couple of rows, it's easier to go a little faster. You kind of have something solid to hold on to. So with this first chain, all right, I find myself kind of just going back, rearranging with each chain and go through, right? And then I move my thumb and forefinger up underneath the next knot. Does that make sense? I was doing this earlier trying to figure it out because it becomes so automatic, just like anything else you learn how to do. Once you get used to it and once you get a flow of it, like it just sort of becomes second nature. Your hands have their own memory. So I had to pause and think about it. So I'm not tightening anything. I'm not pulling this, right? I'm not going to pull this, but I'm just redoing my yarn finger over here, and I'm going to loop it through. And once I have that loop, I just kind of move my thumb and forefinger up a little bit. Okay. And just very gently. If it takes a long time, it takes a long time. And then just move it up back to under that knot. I'm not holding it with a death grip. I'm just holding it so that it doesn't get away from me. Okay. And you'll notice that once you kind of get used to your rhythm of it, you learn how to just sort of let this yarn slide through. Okay. So just kind of move up. And that is a good way to make sure your tension for that first row doesn't get too tight. So then you have a nice even row. You don't have a ton of wobbles and all of that. And what that will do, and then even working that first row, when you go through, you have plenty of space. And I always kind of, especially on that first row, hold it at the bottom underneath, right? And then go into the rest of my stitches. Just to kind of give it, since this is your foundation, it's a little wobbly anyway. And once you have that first row done, it gives you kind of a better base to work with. So then it doesn't feel like everything's wiggling and wobbling and getting away from you. Okay, let me do one more so you can really see the row. All right. And honestly, you guys, it's not about how fast you can get it done. It's really not. I know we are all about like, how quick is it? How speedy is it? Blah, blah, blah. Just let it be relaxing. So then you get a nice even row. You don't have all those wobbles. Now, the other thing I want to say about this is if you are a beginner, working with this really thin yarn can be frustrating. Working with a smaller hook and thin yarn, especially depending on the texture of the yarn, it can throw you off. Like this one, it's 100% cotton because I'm using it for dishcloths, but you can see if I just turn it a little bit, how easily everything sort of unravels, and then you have all of these potential hooks and wobbles that you can get through. So don't start with something super difficult first. So my friend Akina pointed this out because she taught herself how to crochet a few months back, and we were talking about that, and she said she actually started doubling up the yarn, and that made it easier for her to see what she was doing. And I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Because with the thinner yarn, the lighter weight yarn and the small hooks, when you're first learning, it can be really difficult to see what's going on. So this one right here, I picked this up today. This is a 6-weight super bulky yarn. It calls for a 9mm hook. Which is what I have right here. And so that can really, when you're first beginning, kind of help you see the stitches, to figure out the stitches and where they're going. It also offers a little more of something to hold on to. So if you're getting used to all of this, it's a lot harder to, I think, my personal opinion, to make it too tight. Which really, I think most of the time, making everything too tight and too close together is the biggest problem people have versus too loose. So getting that chunkier yarn can definitely be helpful. So I'm going to do a few right here, and I'm going to just do single crochet all the way down. Okay. But even with the thicker yarn, here is my point with this. You can see where those spaces are way easier than with this thin yarn. Like the spaces are so close together that sometimes it can be confusing to figure out where you're going to next. So when you have a chunkier yarn, it's a bit easier to see those spaces because they're more defined. So if you find yourself struggling and you really want to do this, but you're like, I can't see the spaces, I don't know what they're talking about, go get yourself a nice bulky yarn, okay? A nice six weight yarn and a nice big hook, okay? Because now you can see, now that I have a few stitches on there, you can see where your next stitches are gonna be, right? So when we turn it around to do the next row, and you look at the top, you can really see that definition, those little V shapes. And then especially when you're learning, like you can see where you go through the entire space, or if you start learning like front loop, back loop, it's just easier to see that, okay? So I hope that that all makes sense and is super helpful to you guys. So I hope that clears things up. I hope that encourages you a little bit to not give up and to just keep going, keep figuring it out. And let me know if you guys are making fun, cute crochet things. I would love to hear about them. Tag me on Instagram at Sandra M. Bells. I'll put all that up here somewhere, okay? Or at Boho Jewel, and let me know what you're making. So I'm gonna go now that I've bought all this yarn today, and I'm gonna go make something. I don't know, some cute things. Another dishcloth, and finish that up with these. And then I'm just gonna, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. I think I'm gonna probably make a big chunky scarf. We'll see. We'll see. And then I have some other fun stuff that I have coming up for you guys very soon. So have a great day. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for reaching out. Let me know what other questions you have, whatever things are stressing you out. If it's something I'm able to help with, I am glad to do my best to try to explain and help. Meanwhile, go forth, be creative and crafty. I will see you guys soon. Bye.